Okay. Hey. So today I want to talk about Stoicism again. I actually already recorded this video, but I just want to remake it mainly because I cut off so many times. Like the video was probably like 13 something minutes long, but it was divided in like three videos because I made mistakes. Today I want to talk about the misconception of Stoicism being, or a Stoic, a sage Stoic being a person who lacks negative emotions, who is pretty much immune to negative emotions, or negative, or just emotions in general. I feel like for a lot of people, um, it seems that way. I think if you have read any book about Stoicism, it is definitely not the belief that you have about Stoicism. Stoicism mainly talks about using a reason, to circumvent any negative emotion, to derive joy from within, from the source, and not from outside factors, or factors that are external to yourself. I feel like a lot of people think that way, and I thought that way as well. Both before even knowing about Stoicism, I used to think that a man, a real man, was one that was immune to all pressure, to all criticism, to all negative emotions that could be derived from, said things. But truly, it is not, truly it is not, because we are human beings. And I want to be a little bit more precise with this, so I'm going to start calling out some names. Marcus Aurelius himself, I think he's literally the face of Stoicism. He was not, hope you didn't hear that, he was not immune to negative emotions, you know? I think everybody, like a lot of people see him as the perfect stoic, right? The the philosophy the philosopher emperor or some shit like that. I forgot what they call him, but a lot of people see them as the face of stoicism, and it's heartwarming for me to see and to read that he was not a statue when it came to negative emotions. He was not immune to it. He was actually constantly being, visited by these negative emotions. And just, you know, when he talks in book number two, I mean, he talks about, dealing with negative emotions in book number one, when he says that he has in his power everything he needs to find peace. Because otherwise, if death, for example, was bad enough, the gods would have given or put in his hands the power to circumvent said negative emotions or said evil that could come with death, right? But in book number two, he pretty much reveals that he did cope with negative emotions and how. He said that he did not need to go away to, I don't know, the beach or somewhere else to clear his mind. All he needed to do was look within, to look within his soul, pretty much his head, and hopefully he would have facts, knowledge that would ground him, that would comfort him in those situations, And it's really nice to think that way, to think that even a man like him was exposed to this feelings, and probably, more than anyone else. And of course, the type of, negative emotions that we feel or where we derive it from is definitely not at the level of the Emperor of Rome did, as the Emperor of Rome did. But, it's nice to think that way. And I feel like it's important for us to remember that, just like the Stoics said, we are human beings, you know? Epictetus, I think Seneca as well, and Marcus Aurelius believed that we had a share of the divine. Epictetus more specifically said that it was Zeus who gave this to us, and therefore he gave it to like Zeus gave it to us in order for us to be more godlike, to not be, that was our nature, right? To be reasonable, to be of reason, and to use this reason to control both our desires, our aversions, and our actions, right? This was supposedly the power that we had to never be disrupted by anything. And I think that's what they derived this famous quote of, "It's not the things, but your judgment about them that, you know, changes how you feel or makes or disrupts you." Rather, I'm butchering that, I know, but the exact same thing happened. Sorry. Anyhow, so it's just nice to think that way, to think that it is not, so you're not supposed to not feel emotions. It's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to feel anxious. Hypothetically, right, for the Stoics, you only had a share of the divine. You're not a god. You are a human being. If you're not a believer, of course, I doubt you would believe that Zeus gave you that, right? But you know, nature, our anxiety, our fears, our shame, our pain, all of these things that we sort of like reject or try to avoid so much, these things are there because they brought us this far. They took us this far. They made sure we survived as human beings. It's important to understand that we are animals, to understand that we are human beings, you know? And those emotions that we feel are part of us, you know? And we have a lot to thank them for. But thankfully, we have a reason. And now we can work with it and circumvent all the negative emotions that we could possibly derive from said feelings or from said things. So yeah, I just really like how Seneca put it. Sorry, Epictetus put it. Like, you have a share of the divine. He gave you power over your reason so that you can dictate your aversions and your desires and your actions. So do not deviate from that and try to control how other people think about you or how what other people do, because you were only given power over one thing. You should be okay with that. You should be okay with only being able to control that, you know? So it might be too dry of a too dry of an advice, too dry you know of a way to deal with your emotions and your feelings, but it should be enough for us, I think. you know for example, today at work, if you remember, if you have watched any of my previous videos, I actually I got a job as at a call center, calling people, mainly because I wanted to implement my stoicism, because I have social anxiety, or I used to have social anxiety, and I wanted to get myself out of my comfort zone because I felt like I had already gotten myself out of my comfort zone to the point that I was so comforted in it to the point that it was just pretty much my comfort zone. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, you know what I mean. And I wanted to put myself out there, and talking to people, selling stuff to people has actually been like the least difficult thing. Okay. And then I think the most difficult thing so far has been dealing with higher ranks, people who were above me. So for example, I love to think the way that Musashi thought about pretty much passions, and it is that when you know the way, you see it everywhere. Not to say that I have mastered stoicism or anything like that, but it's nice to see that I see it everywhere. I see it in every small thing. Like, for example, when I'm sitting there and I'm calm, I realize that I have conquered that. I have understood. Like, when somebody insults me through the phone, I understand that it's not for me. These people don't know me. And if they magically get it right, it should not affect me at all. You know what I'm saying? To look at, like, the leaderboard and see that I'm not doing as well as other people. And I reason things out. I remind myself that comparison is not true. Comparison is not a true indicator of success. That there's a reason why I look at the leaderboard and I just and not I and I just sorry. There's a reason why I look at the leaderboard and not just remind myself of like how many sales I got, because I know how many sales I got. I look at the leaderboard for a reason, because I want to see if other people are doing better than me. But that doesn't matter, you know. If Pepito, let's say, that's a name by the way, if Pepito is doing better than me, what the hell does that matter? I'm still at two. You know what I'm saying? If Pepito's doing worse than me, what the hell does that matter? I'm still at two. Am I doing well? Is like two warranted? Did I do well? Or did I just get it randomly by luck? That's what should matter. Am I doing my best? Because if Pepito does well tomorrow, and I still at my two, I will feel very rewarded. I will feel like an overachiever and whatever. But at the end of the day, I didn't improve. That's a lie. So those type of things are the things that I'm being exposed to constantly. And today, or well, a few days after, ignore that, a few days ago, um, I was uh, I was called out, and they told me that my payment was gonna arrive late. Okay, my first paycheck, and I was pretty much talking to the person. I was okay, like okay. And then when I sat back at my cubicle, there's a lady who sits next to me. She was pretty much shaming me for not standing up for myself, you know. And like I mentioned previously in my videos, I have a little voice in my head. I have a little voice in my head, and it tells me not to be a B word, to go out there, to put myself out there, to suffer, to be ashamed, to get all of these negative emotions, to put myself in an uncomfortable situation, because only that way can I grow. Only that way can I know what I'm capable of. You know, I am not gonna leave this world with fears. I do not want that. And so that little voice was telling me things very similar to like previous times when I was, gazing at a danger, at least subjectively a danger. But this time, it was not just telling me like you're a bitch, you're gonna go home if you don't take this opportunity right now to do this, and like whatever happens happens. Maybe you get like completely ashamed of yourself, you are insulted, whatever. When you return home, I'm gonna still be here. That's what he tells me. I'm gonna still be here, and I'm gonna make you feel bad for like days for not doing this. Regardless of how small it is, it doesn't matter. Matter of fact, it matters more. If it is too small, you should do it. You know. But this time it was a little bit more understanding, but not understanding in a sense like complacent. It was more like you should do this, not because you would be a bitch if you didn't do that, but because of this. He was not telling me that well, not only that, he was also telling me, hey, just look about it from another perspective. Look at it. Look at you standing up, going up to your boss, and telling him how you feel. Telling him that the payment should arrive earlier because you've spent some days doing this without any type of you know, like reward, a financial reward or whatever, you know, and for example, that all of the doubts that you have, because I was asking whether they would pay me if I resigned. And of course that's a very I guess spicy conversation to have with your boss, you know what I'm saying? Because they can tell you like, well, this person is probably not gonna do it, or they could lash out at you. At least that's what I thought, right? But my point was that just looking at it from another perspective, if somebody went up to somebody else, because my fear stemmed from my knowledge of me not being a good debater, me not being a good speaker, me not being smart enough, me not being sleek enough to know when somebody was taking advantage of me not being well spoken enough to find the right words. And I'm being specific here. Me not being smart enough to find the correct words to express something in my native language because I am rusty at it. I traded off for this level of English. um, so when I think about it, when I think about somebody doing that, somebody going out of their way in fear and doing it, standing up for themselves, not complaining, not saying, I'm going to stay here because I just don't get it. I just don't got it. I don't got what it takes to stand up for yourself. I don't got what it takes to succeed that way. You know what I'm saying? If I were that type of person, that's a person who's not doing the best that they can out of what they have. That's a person who is living in accordance with external factors. You know, it's a noble thing to pursue what I was trying to pursue at then, which was standing up for yourself, being limitless. You know, not letting fear of whoa, what will they think, or why will the boss think? Because there were a lot of people also like around, and they knew that I was, sort of like not okay with it, but I was like, sort of like afraid of what they would think of me if I failed, you know. But I was really thinking like, if anybody else did that, if anybody in fear, with a mediocre vocabulary, and maybe not as smart, gets up and goes to the person and tries to defend what they believe to be right, and they get shamed, let's fucking say, they get completely shamed, they get yelled at, and they, I don't know, I don't know, they tell you something like that, something really bad, the worst, most dystopic outcome comes out of it. I would not shame that person, because I would know that person did their best to defend themselves. They did their absolute best to do what they knew was right. Why would they be ashamed of? You know, you should be ashamed only of what it is truly shameful, and ignore people's low opinions of things. Because those things, if you are ashamed of what other people believe to be shameful, you're pretty much chasing praise. You're pretty much protecting your reputation. And when you do that, you're living by other people. Like you're living a life that you don't want. Just because you're defending this, you're going for praise. You're trying to impress or please other people you know whose obviously whose outlook in life and goal is not yours. Because if it was yours, you would get up and you would go out there. For example, let's say there's a person just like me who has the same goal as me. If that person gets up, you know what I'm saying, goes out there, gets completely shamed or like completely humiliated in front of everyone and returns, me as a similar soul, you know, as somebody who has the same goals, I will not shame this person. I will not disdain this person. Why? Because they are doing what I believe to be right. You know what I'm saying? So when you're ashamed of doing something while you actually feel like you have to do it, that's your passion, that's your goal, that's what you have to do in that moment. But you're constantly looking at other people. You gotta remind yourself that you're looking, or you're pretty much rejecting or avoiding disdain from other people, which means that, you know, those other people have power over you when you actually don't like these people, or you might like these people but you don't have the similar ideas. If they disdain you, then that's okay. You know what I'm saying? They have different goals. You know what I'm saying? They look at life differently. Maybe you have the answers, maybe they have the answers, we don't know. Hopefully we do have the answers. But my point is that you're gonna be caught up in that little game of like trying to please other people, and you will never get where you want to be. So I did what I wanted to do. I got up, I went to my boss, and I told him, I did decently. You know what I'm saying? We suffer more in our heads than in reality. Truly. um but yeah, I hope I made that point clear, because I feel like a lot of people would get benefited from it. Just imagine that, just see it from another perspective. If a similar soul, if somebody who has the same goals as you was there, what would they say? Not other people, because you're probably, if those people disdain you, that's perfect. They're literally showing you their character. Whether it be bad, whether it be good, it could be good or it could be bad. It doesn't matter, you know. Some people are really good, but they're also very, very disdainful at times. So you should not shame them because you were pretty much given different types of, you know, outlooks in life and stuff. But, you know, you cannot lose in this game. That's the point, you know. When Marcus Aurelius said this, you were given all of the tools to circumvent negative emotions. Again, butchering, but I'm paraphrasing constantly. To circumvent negative emotions, for some reason, it is actually true. It's not gonna be hard. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be definitely very hard. But it's true. So far, it is. And yeah. Okay, so as you might know, this is a. I mean, I want to make this channel about more broad things, not only about me, but I also want to, you know, sort of make this a journal. So, tomorrow, or well, not tomorrow, in 2 days, is my mom's birthday, 1st of January. And it also marks 5 days, or 5 years, sorry, of me learning English, at least consecutively. That's actually kind of nice. I remember one day when I was, I think, 16, I said to myself, I should learn English. And I did so. And it's been 5 years. Um, you know, that's kind of nice. Got her gift right here. It's actually a hair dryer. She needs it. She really does. She's always like hanging her wig around and stuff. It's kind of so funny. Every time I think about it, it's so funny. But yeah, now she won't have to do that. It's a really nice gift, I think. Hopefully she will like it. Again, this is a little bit more personal, so you can click out. This is just for me to you know, be here, to just return at some point. It's been a journey. It's been real. I'm satisfied, sort of, with the level I have in English, I guess. I remember I started because I wanted to have a podcast, wanted to express my emotions, and I feel like that's the very best decision I made in my life so far. So yeah, it's been a long journey so far. It's been a lot of growth. I'm so happy to be able to say that, to look back, literally a month from now, or you know, or like a year from now, and say and be ashamed of who I was. It's nice, cause it shows you how much you're growing. Not ashamed, of course, but being like looking at it and being like, damn, he didn't know. Like he didn't know. He really didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just so funny. You know what I'm saying? And I guess if I ever at some point in life look back and I say, damn, I knew it, I got it, or like, you know, things are the same, I think that would be a sign that I'm either stagnated or I've made it. We never know. Anyhow, so yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been nice. It's been real. We're still learning. I also wanted to talk about this, so just to close it up. Soon I will have a interview, sort of an interview, sorry, in which I'm gonna have to pretty much teach English. And I'm not a great English teacher. I'm not. I might speak English decently well. At least I'm above average in my country, which sort of gives me more, I guess, social proof that I could be a good English teacher, but I don't know if I am. And, you know, I guess that's what's been in my head lately, just thinking that I should perform well, you know, and whether I'm gonna be shamed or not for my teaching skills and my knowledge in like not in like English, because of course you can speak a language very well, but you can probably not know the language well. You know what I'm saying? At least not to, you know, teach it to an audience, or sorry, to like a classroom and stuff, right? So that's what's been in my head lately. But even though I know easily that I could just say, like, step aside and say like, well, we're not doing it, maybe some other time, and, you know, just chill. I actually don't want to do it. I actually want to put myself out there because, like, if you watch the previous videos, I did not get rejected before getting this job that I'm currently in. And I feel like I owe myself that rejection. I owe myself that situation, you know, to kind of implement more of my knowledge, more of my mentality, and to learn how to deal with it. If in the future it ever comes, um, fortune weighs harder on the experience. That's what Seneca said. So, in a sense, I'm putting myself out there, but I'm trying to, sort of like internalize this and use my reason to remove any pain from it and any anxiety from it. They cannot tell me anything that I don't know. If they tell me I'm a terrible teacher, it's not like I didn't have any, it's not like I didn't see the hints that I was a terrible teacher. If they tell me that I'm not that well spoken, again, I know that every single day. I remind myself of all of the things that I want to change in my life. I remind myself of the good and the bad things that I have, so that nobody else can tell me something I don't know, and nobody else can tell me a lie and I'll believe it because I know myself. And I'll definitely be here afterwards, even if it goes terribly. So yeah, I hope I helped someone with these little videos. They are my shelter, in a sense. This is where I come to pretty much, let it all out, let my thoughts out. It's very rejuvenating to be here, to speak. For some reason, I don't want to keep this for myself. I don't want to cling to them and just leave them there. Even though nobody watches my videos, by the way, so I guess that's a greater proof that there's something here that I don't know how to explain it, but putting them out there for some reason feels different. It's more rewarding. I feel like I might have the hopes that somebody will find, some value in it, and that will help someone like me, because I truly believe that whatever I talked about in previous videos and even in this video is something that I, at least in the past, would have gotten a lot of value from. So I guess I hope. Oh my god, this is awkward. I hope I don't know how to close my videos, dude. What should I say? See you in another video. Like and subscribe. Oh my god. Alright, see you later.